In today's video, we will talk about selection of bin rail mount industrial switches from Edimax. So, let's first take a look what models we can choose from. After opening the web page, we can take a look at switches and industrial category. In this category, we can see both rack mount and DIN rail mount switches. Right now, we will focus on the DIN rail mount switches. From the web page, we can tell that there are now 6 models available on the market. We'll now go through all of these models to talk about differences and similarities. Let's start from the simplest possible model, IGS 1005. As we can say from the name, it's a 5-port gigabit Ethernet switch. Basic description we can see on the right side of the web page. From the most important points, it's worth to mention that it's equipped with the surge protection that protects connected devices. It can be powered through 2 separate power adapters, so there is a power redundancy. And in case of power failure, the P-fail relay switch can notify connected devices. As for the detailed functions, we can get back to it later. Now, if we go a little bit higher, there is an IGS 1105P version. So again, if we look at the name, this is still a 5-port switch, a gigabit switch. However, this version is equipped with the PoE functionality. As for the other functions, we may say that these are very, very similar to the previous model. If we would like to know what kind of a PoE standard was used, it's best to check the specification and then scroll down to the PoE function. As you can see, we support the standard 8002.3AF and 8002.380, so PoE plus. However, it's worth to check the power output, which is available per port and in total. So we can see that switch will support up to 30 watts per port with maximum power budget 120 watts. Additionally, we can tell that the PoE will still be available above 100 meters. We can guarantee PoE capabilities up to 200 meters. However, the speed will be limited to 10 megabits per second. Of course, as for all industrial PoE devices, we do provide PoE power backfeed protection, again, to protect the switch itself and other connected devices. Next, we have the IGS 1210P. This is a 10-port gigabit switch. In this case, we have 8 gigabit Ethernet PoE plus ports and additionally 2 SFP uplink ports. As for the PoE standard, so we support the PoE plus, so 802.380. Again, with 30 watts per port. However, we have more ports available, so the total power budget was also increased up to 240 watts. For the other functions, we talked about it just a second ago. Switch is equipped with the backfeed protection. It does support long distance PoE up to 200 meters with the limited speed down to 10 megabits per second. Other details we will describe in the other part of the video. Talking about the IGS 1210P, we need to mention that there is also a slightly newer model available on the market, version 2. However, I need to say that from the functional point of view, it's exactly the same. The reason we changed the model name is because the power controller for the PoE output has to be changed. So this is a hardware adjustment required by the chipset availability, but it does not affect the functionality of the switch at all. Now let's jump to the other series of switches. We will start with the IGS 5208. This model I will use in a moment to talk a little bit about each function separately by looking at its UI. Right now, let's just take a look at its basic description. So obviously the switch is protected from harsh environment and it can work with temperature range from -40 to 75 degrees. Of course, it does support basic layer 2 functions. As for the PoE, however, we need to take a look at 2 other models. First one will be the IGS 5408B. So from the name itself, we can tell that it does have 8 gigabit PoE equipped ports with 30 watts per port and the total power budget 240 watts. Additionally, it's equipped with 4 SFP uplink ports. And as for the functionality itself, it's similar to the previous model. And the last one, IGS 5416P. This one equipped with 16 gigabit Ethernet ports, again with the PoE functionality, 30 watts per port, and the total power budget 240 watts. And again, in this case, we have 4 SFP uplink ports. What needs to be mentioned when we are talking about those three models is that all of those models are certified. So we have the IAC certification for vibration, shock, free fall, EMC, and EMS. Now let's log into AGS 5208 and take a look at its interface. So we enter the username by default admin and the default password 1234 and can see the base page of the switch. On the left, we have a menu with basic settings, redundancy, management, layer 2 switching, so basic layer 2 capabilities, some security, diagnostic and monitoring settings, additionally, some information about the MAC table, which was learned by the switch, and some maintenance tools, mainly firmware update or the capabilities of saving and restoring the settings. As for the basic settings, we will not stop here for too long. We have some system settings, including the system name, location, contact. We can set the IP version 4 address. Obviously, we can also set up the IP version 6 address, set the system time, and of course, make it to be updated from the NTP server. Now it gets a little bit more interesting with redundancy course, in this menu, we will see the spanning tree protocol RSTP configuration. But what can be more interesting are the ERPS settings. Now, let's jump for a moment to the manual of the switch. As you can see, manual itself provides quite detailed explanation of the feature capabilities and its configuration. Of course, if you would have any doubts how to configure each feature, please do not hesitate to contact Edimax support. Let's jump to the Switch UI and take a look at the other functions. If we go for the management, we can see SNMP configuration, industrial protocols, and this we'll describe in a moment, DHCP configuration, including the DHCP server, and UPnKP configuration. Think about industrial protocols, we can see that switch can be controlled by Modbus TCP. So if you want to know the details and what kind of features can be controlled, again, it's good to jump back to the manual, which describes in detail what are the holding registers and what are the input registers. And from the manual, you can tell what kind of features can be controlled through Modbus TCP. We will not go into details here, so if you would have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact the Edimax support via email or via phone. Let's go back to the UI of the switch and see other functions. Next menu provides access to the layer 2 capabilities. First, we have a port management with some detailed port status informations. As you can see, the port status is also graphically represented on the right side of the switch UI. So at this moment, I only have one port connected, port number 2. That's why this is the only port in green. Apart from this, we have the IGMP snooping configuration. Obviously, we can configure VLANs for each of the ports. So the port can use both tagged and untagged VLANs. Additionally, what's worth to mention, Switch does support Q-in-Q port settings. So it is quite usable device in the wider networks. The layer 2 settings covers quality of service and port trunking. Now, if we open security menu, we do see storm control, 802.1x control, includes radius server control, and some service control functions. In diagnostic menu, we can set port mirroring, and we can use simple ping tool to check some IP addresses. Monitoring allows us to set up LLDP settings and some system warnings to watch for some unwanted events. In MAC table, we can see MAC address table, which were learned by the switch, and we can also set some static MAC addresses. And the last one is a maintenance menu. We can see authorization, which covers the username and password. We can upgrade the firmware. Obviously, we can configure the backup and restore. And additionally, we can make a switch to automatically load the backup from USB or upload the backup configuration to the USB dongle. Of course, in this video, we cannot cover the configuration of each function in detail. So if you would have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us or just refer to the user manual.